Hello, friends. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs, to another episode of the Warui Deshou podcast. It's probably bad, but we think that can be good. It's Request Line, the second episode of the Request Line. I am the TheSubtleDoctor, and I am joined by my buddy, not the, ill-fated 80s Mattel toy, my buddy, but my actual friend. The hardest working man in pod business, the chromiest dome, Shadon.
Well, that would be the name of my toy line, and why, yes, I am fully posable.
all the manipulative joints.
Whoa. Oh, God. Hope you're all doing well, folks. Anyway, that toy line will never happen, no matter how much we merchandise the hell out of this. Like, if we go full Kiss on Warui Deshou, if that, ever happens, I promise you there will be no fully posable Shadon doll.
I think you've let down a great number of patrons by this statement you just made.
Well, it's fine, I'll get them the head, whatever it is, like the head wig thing that you wear where it turns you bald, but then also comes with like this really cheap fake beard.
Okay, that sounds like a fair compromise. We got to put that as a stretch goal on our Patreon. Well, as I said, everybody, we are covering Barakamon for today's request line, and we like to thank Mirror on the Wall for following the secret instructions, going to the illicit is not the right word, but the secret phone booth and dialing the number in a clandestine way. And I
was going to say the illicit phone booth is something entirely different.
Yes, it's true. It's true. The word that I was going to use left me, and then all I could think about was this scene in the Netflix Baki anime where two gigantic roided out motherfuckers have like a fight in a phone booth. Like, that's physically impossible to do.
Amazing.
Yes. But anyway, thank you, Mirror, for getting us that hidden, secret, encrypted communication, getting it into the answer phone of mystery. And so
I read that. I put that little communication through Morse code translator, and just reeling off this little slip of paper. I read it. I was like, "Watch Barakamon, you idiots."
Is this you trapped in the basement of the house, Morse coding it out?
Oh, God. I just realized what you were referencing.
Yes.
Holy shit. But the thing, well, obviously no, because we got the message in the end, so there we go.
It's true. Our movie ended differently. But you might be wondering out there, what is Barakamon? Because, I don't know, do you hear a lot of people talking about this show a bunch? Shadon, I know my experience, this is right around the time I got into really online fandom, but I don't know, it was probably a couple years later where I was actually sufficiently plugged into with the quote unquote right people, or at least the newsmakers and tastemakers and stuff. I just don't remember a lot of people talking about this show, but that's the case for a lot of good shows these days, honestly.
I'll be honest, I had not heard of this really until Mirror had requested it from us. I guess you could say it never quite got off the island for me.
Oh no. Oh, well, yeah. I'm going to now punch you and get banished for that show.
I'm going to totally look... Well, mine is not having as much hair. I am totally going to have the same attitude and general, demeanor and look as the director in this show. The character that is not the actual show director, I should say.
Sure. Yes.
Your podcast is mechanical.
So
they made it out of a textbook.
That's right. You podcast like other podcasters.
Ooh.
What I need from you is to discover your own podcasting style. Anyway, these jokes make no sense to you if you haven't seen the show, but that's okay. This first small portion of the show will be spoiler free. But it'll be a smaller portion than normal, I think, because due to the nature of what this show is, which I'll get into in a moment, but due to what it is, there's only so much kind of analysis that we feel like, we can pull from it. And maybe we'll get more than we think as we get into the show and start talking about it. But I think because of the kind of show it is, it necessitates us approaching it slightly differently. So there'll be more, I think, quote unquote spoilery talk, because we're going to just talk more about characters and the events of the plot and recount things. And I'll explain my reasoning behind that in just a moment. But yeah, Barakamon Obama. Here we go. This is in my notes. Barakamon is a 2014 anime by Studio Kinema Citrus. It is
that rings a bell.
Oh no, this is bad, isn't it?
What's
the one?
I'm 99% certain they're the studio who did Shield Hero.
Right. Yes. Thank you. I knew it was either Shield Hero or the Soda Pop Girls. I couldn't remember which one.
It might well, you know what? It might well have been both. Like,
Jesus Christ!
I'm probably wrong on that, but at this point, lightning does sometimes strike twice.
You're right about Shield Hero. Like, they are the Shield Hero. They are a studio that worked on Shield Hero. I think the primary one. So
presumably at gunpoint.
I hope this would be before they completely fell into the dark times, when they were doing lovely, wholesome Iyashikei anime, such as Barakamon. Now, what do I mean by Iyashikei? I think that's just a way of talking about something called healing anime. Shadon.
May I reference our own podcast history? Because
Absolutely.
You actually used that term once to describe Aka 13 when I was talking about it way back when, because at the time I watched it and I was like, I don't get it. And I think I might have been a bit flippant and made a joke like, why, what was it trying to heal? Insomnia. But
hey,
yeah, that was very cruel of me. And I'll be honest, right? Like, ever since I listened to Anime's Lit's wonderful podcast episode on Aka 13, shouts to Danny and Kay. My opinion personally on it hasn't changed as much, but I will say, like, I feel more open to the idea of it being a healing anime now, and now I understand the idea, like, behind the concept more as a result. But yeah, not a term I'm entirely unfamiliar with, as it turns out.
Good. So yeah, the idea of these sorts of anime, broadly speaking, are less about high stakes drama and situations involving a lot of excitement being generated from the viewer, and it is more about soothing the viewer, about sussing out of them very particular, like, chill, mellow, comforting emotions and emotional states. So that leads to shows of a certain kind of tone and a certain kind of pacing that are different than, shows in other genres. And you might be wondering, well, what are some other examples of Yashikei? Because I really dig Barakamon. I watched it just for this very podcast. And so now, so I'll tell you right offhand, 3 that came to mind when I was writing up this sheet of notes. I remember first learning about this genre in the early part of the last decade when I was on a forum. And the main example put forward back then was Aria. And that is about these lady gondoliers on the planets. I don't know if it's Mars and Venus or just Venus, but yeah, really chill show. I've heard there's like 3 different seasons of it, like Aria the natural, Aria the animation, and a very popular one that I'm sure you've heard of, Shadon, and also you out there, is Natsume's Book of Friends, Natsume Yujincho.
I haven't actually.
You have not? Oh, okay. There's like a bazillion seasons of it on Crunchyroll.
I must have been under the rock that day, like it's where I like to hide when I don't want to, deal with the world in general. Must just pass me by.
There's a really good cat demon thing, or cat yokai, rather, which is different than our concept of demon. And then one I absolutely know you know about because it was popular and recent. Yuru Camp.
Oh, God, yes.
Laid back camp. Just show all about girls I think they're in high school, not middle school, but high school who love camping and just about them going camping and enjoying, the joys therein of nature and camping tools.
I am very sad that there is not a Glastonbury spin-off of that, or a similar rock festival kind of follow-up season.
That would rule. They really should do like a music festival show. That's just
as long as they keep it light. Like we don't want none of those characters like going, "This is methamphetamine."
Right. Come to my orgy, bro. No. Yeah. No, that could get a little dicey. And I think, why it works as a healing anime is because it's, very few people involved. But that's sort of the genre broadly that Barakamon fits into. I guess you could argue it's a little bit more slice of life-y, but like, I'm not going to quibble with you about it. Plot-wise, though, Shadon, do you think you could give maybe an elevator pitch here, like someone looking to dive into the show? Because it's only 12 episodes. There is, by the way, I should note, I don't know if you knew this because I didn't know this, a prequel / spin-off show.
Oh.
It came out a couple years, I think it's 2016 vintage. I think it's just called Handa-san. And it's about our titular
Wait, bookseller Handa-san. He turned into a skull and works at a manga store. No, I'm kidding. Different character.
It's about our main character in this show when he was in high school and still very much full of himself. So it's sort of a different sort of show, I think. But anyway, yeah, what's Barakamon about?
Well, Barakamon is about what happens when you take the okay boomer philosophy to its next level. Am I actually wrong? Because sorry.
Go ahead. I have to think about this, actually.
Come on, that was his response to the director. Just he decided to punch him instead of saying it.
The violent manifestation of okay boomer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I can agree to that, yes.
All right. So basically, it boils down to this. You've got, this is actually, funnily enough, the perfect week for us to cover Barakamon in because we're also going to be covering Rako Shindo. And this is essentially an examination of a very rigid art in Japanese culture, along with both Rako and I'd also say Takazura theatre. I probably completely butchered the pronunciation of that, but you know what I mean. Which
Takarazuka, absolutely.
Takarazuka,
yes.
That's the one, yeah. Mm-hmm. Which relies on very stringent rules and expectations of the people taking part of it. And it's about one particular guy who is lambasted for his work, and there are indeed violent physical consequences as a result of this, which is not what you'd expect when we talk about a healing anime, to be honest. But it results in him being exiled, I suppose, if you want to call it that, to an island to cool his head and try and find some inspiration for his work, basically.
Yeah, I think, looking at it a certain way, I think it totally makes sense as a healing anime, and that's, not necessarily the violent sort of fuse that lights the fire that is this anime. But if you think about it, Handa, our main character, our calligrapher, has been immersed in doing calligraphy basically his entire life. It's been he's devoted his whole life to getting better at this, and he's really good. He's won grand prizes, he's celebrated, but you have this guy sort of ranked above him, like the owner of this gallery, director of his institute or organization, something, who's just like, hey, you know, this is not good enough, despite the fact that it won the grand prize. And you have all this frustration and stress built up in Handa. And then the rest of the show is about taking this very stressed out man and de-stressing him so that he can gain some personal insight. And I think that like fact that it is about taking a very like overworked, stressed person and kind of relaxing them, like basically taking what do you call those things that you roll dough with? A dough roller to his stress and soul, and like mashing it all down is, I don't know, like that's sort of what healing anime is meant to be for, like for the viewer.
Mm-hmm. Someone absolutely should use a rolling pin on me to work my stress out, by the way. I would totally be okay with that. But yeah, I mean, the idea behind a healing anime can be very didactic in that it's literally about a character healing inside the show proper, which is certainly true with Barakamon. But to expand on that concept, I think it also applies just generally leaving the viewer and the audience, you know, feeling good, you know, like they've had a good time, they've enjoyed it. Generally, you feel more chilled out than when you started.
Totally.
So it can work both ways, and I think Barakamon actually succeeds at doing both, in my opinion. But yeah, that's basically the pitch. Like, Handa goes out to this island to basically be away from the city, to be away from the stresses of that kind of life, from the expectations hoisted upon him, and just try and find himself and find, you know, a certain personality to his work. Although I will note that you brought up something very interesting, which I want to address later, which is that he is a grand prize winner, as you say, but the director still says, actually, no, this is still dog shit, you know? I want you all to keep that in mind, would-be listeners at home, the bus, the park, wherever you may be. If you're spelunking, I don't know, you might be listening to this podcast while you're deep in a cave. You know, keep that in mind for the later discussion, that discrepancy between winning the contest, but also the director saying, no, this still sucks.
Yeah, it's... Oh, man. I feel like going into why the director doesn't appreciate that work, I think is spoiler territory, but it is a very specific reason why he doesn't like it that I think, again, works for kind of putting the crosshairs, you know, the gun reticle directly on the demographic of the show, which is like stressed out young men. Because I don't think this is a show for, like, you know, the sort of typical anime demo, you know, kids in high school or, you know, early college. Feels like this is for a little bit older of a group, for young professionals.
Yes.
You know, because it is about a young professional, and a lot of the, you know, a lot of the sort of more heartwarming and humorous moments involve a young professional's interaction with a very young girl. And those kind of, I don't know, interactions just make me think, like, this is supposed to be for adults and not for teenagers.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. This is definitely not aimed at your typical, like, shonen show audience, if you want to call it that, or target demographic. But that's fine. But also, I think it might also explain in some way why this didn't seem to be on my radar, even though it is pretty good. Mm-hmm. Which is a shame, but yeah, we'll get into specifics in a little bit on that. But definitely aimed at, like, people like me, funnily enough, I suppose I would say.
Yeah, and so I'm looking now to confirm this theory, and I think we're dead on. And this will get us to the next section of our outline to talk about the creatives. So Barakamon is not an anime original work. It was a manga that ran. This can't be right. There's no way this is right.
Try me. Go on, try me, Doc.
So I can believe it began in February 2008. However, my anime list says that ended its run on January 10th, 2019. This is 5 years after the show was done. So there's more to the story, I guess.
Pass.
I guess there's more to the story.
Well, about the only alternatives to that would be that the final volumes of the manga were sent back in time and used to create the anime. I wish they'd have done more with the time travel technology in that case, but hey, you know what? We still got a good anime out of it, so that's something.
Oh gosh. So it was serialized in why do I not have it in front of me? Gon Online. And I'm looking to see if we have the demographic in front of me.
Tiny Chaos Gremlins. That's the target demographic.
What's that?
Tiny Chaos Gremlins.
Exactly. Yeah, okay, so it says it's both, it publishes shonen and seinen. I was going to say it's just straight up seinen, which is for manga for grown men. But it does have, it did publish Full Metal Alchemist, and that is most certainly a shonen manga, but it looks like it does a bit of both. And this was a print that was published by Square Enix in 2003. It was founded, I guess it was founded by Enix in 91, but it just moved over to Square Enix because of the merger. So, but yeah, Barakamon, a manga written by Satsuki Yoshino, who I don't really see any other manga outside of this franchise that he's written. But now I understand why, given the fact that it just ended last year. So he
finally got off the island.
He's been busy for a decade.
He did every single sheet on the walls of a room inside of his house.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. As the sliding closet full of manga pages.
He definitely is a manga author, though, because at least one character is very heavily into manga, and let's face it, right? I didn't realize we'd get Rule 34 Junji Ito in this particular show, but here we are.
Oh man, Tamako rules. She's
great.
Best.
She's good.
She's very good. So the author did also do the Handa-kun manga, and so don't think that the spinoff is anime original or whatever. There's also a weird special thanks to the author in the second episode of Watamote, which you need to watch at some point. That's also a Gon Online manga, but the anime, I felt incredibly seen at times by this anime. It's a wonderful, glorious show. Watamote. The full title is something like, I don't care what you say, it's you guys' fault that I'm not popular, but Watamote is easier to say.
Oh shit, he stole the title of my autobiography.
Exactly.
Damn it! Exactly. I'm gonna have to come up with something new now. Why?
So for the anime,
damn it, I'm gonna call my autobiography. I'm gonna call it. Damn it, you stole the title for this, you prick. You know who you are.
That's good. That's very good. I would endorse that title. Put me down for a back of the box quote, a back of the book quote.
I knew him.
Would be like, I like this title.
I know who the author is. That's the pull quote on the back.
Let's talk about the director here of the TV show, Masaki Tachibana, who directed, in addition to Barakamon, directed a lot of people really like Princess Principal. Have you heard of or seen Princess Principal?
Nope. Does it go by the nickname of Pri Pri?
It does.
I knew it.
It does. I think it's from 2017.
I wasn't sober at any point during 2017. I don't remember anything from then.
It's a really neat show about British spies.
Ooh.
It's good. It's really fun. And has a great OP.
So it's King's Woman then. There we go. I get it now.
Oh, yeah, yes, yeah. Also the director of Tokyo Magnitude 8.0, which I think is pretty underseen for how good it is. This is like a 2009 anime about a horrible earthquake that takes place in Japan, and some survivors kind of like making it out of the ruins and aftermath and all that. So
sounds familiar.
it's an anime disaster movie. But like it doesn't, to my recollection, it doesn't like become disaster porn or anything like that. Like it's just a really good character story.
Do you reckon Masaki Uasa was taking notes while watching that?
Perhaps. What for Japan Sinks?
Maybe it's the unauthorized prequel to it, or sequel rather.
Oh man, I've heard such mixed reviews for this show. I'm very like hesitant to get into it. I know I will at some point.
Have you got a sinking feeling about it?
Yes, very good. Very good. Some but less well received properties that Tachibana has been involved with directorially. Phantasy Star Online 2. That happened. And where is it? The Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky. OAV, which, I mean, I haven't seen it, and I know that there are some people that like video game anime. Oh, speaking of, he's also directed King of Fighters: Another Day. Like, to me, video game anime are like the bottom tier of anime.
Oh my god! I mean, we've watched. Did we actually watch a King of Fighters anime? For the old Bando Faces series we did, or am I thinking?
No,
perhaps
that
instead
was
of Street Fighter Cross?
Alpha. Yeah, you were Street Fighter Alpha was the one.
Yeah, where Chun-Li is constantly talking out of her undercarriage.
Yes. Well, many dozens of shots frame Chun-Li's crotch in the dead center of the frame. Yes. Oh,
classy.
Good times. Good times. But yeah, I mean, he's worked on, a lot of different like good properties though in terms of episode direction and storyboarding. So, we got Erica 7, we got Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, like little bits here and there of, Sword Art Online Alternative, Gun Gale Online.
Oh, good, there's an alternative to Sword Art Online, thank Christ. Finally.
Yes.
Unless it's part of the title, in which case, shit.
That's true bona fides.
That's like saying we've got Pepsi Max, then we've got Pepsi Max with vanilla thrown in. Great.
Good. Yes. Multiple colons in that title, apparently. But
that's not reassuring.
I should also, the last thing I'll say for Tachibana is storyboarded. I guess one of the storyboarders for the Napping Princess movie, which is really good. I love that movie. Just an awful lot. A totally underseen movie from a couple of years ago. It's in my, what is it called? My pinned tweet.
Is that the one about being a lackey?
It is. That's the one. Yeah, Napping Princess rules. It's so good. I'm going to go rewatch it today. It rules.
Am I your lackey, Doc? Is that why we're doing this podcast? Did you secretly make me a lackey all those years ago?
Yes, that is. I sent you some seeds in the mail, and you don't remember, but you planted them and ate one of the fruit. This is a topical joke. Have you seen that the weird seeds are showing up in America sent from unknown people in China?
No, I was thinking then like how there's been a lot of news stories recently about how like I think it Siberia's like door to the underground is winding, and we found like this weird shit on the moon, this giant egg elsewhere. Like, is this like another doomsday thing? Is this basically the day of the Triffids?
2020, everybody.
The Mayans just had a rounding error.
I think there was some crazy thing I read from the Wall Street Journal yesterday that was like 23 different states. Like people have received seeds in the mail from like these unknown addresses in China. And unfortunately for all of us, a few people have already planted them. So nice going.
Dave
when
the
the evil demon
there.
plant like sprouts and consumes all of us into a giant Venus flytrap. just know that it's your fault.
Wow, the Rocky franchise shop of horrors.
Yes.
Sorry, little. I got the two freaks completely mixed up. A little pet shop of going franchise across the US.
Exactly. I knew what you meant.
Thank God for that. I didn't.
Okay, head writer Masafumi Sugiura, also known as Pierre Sugiura, and under this pseudonym, you'll find all of their work. So a small CV, very small. Of course, we got the Barakamon series composition and the scripts. But have you heard of a little anime called Bottom Biting Bug?
No, I've not heard of the Triple B anime.
The Triple B. All 3 seasons, he either wrote the scripts or was credited with series composition. And he also wrote the scripts to something called Kumamiko Girl Meets Bear.
That doesn't sound like a happy show at all.
The anime Boy Meets World that you didn't know that you wanted. Yeah.
And also, was it only an episode long? Was she eaten alive?
It's a TV show. I don't know how long it is, maybe. It shouldn't be that long, though. Girl Meets Bear, episode 2, Girl Dies. Yeah, we also got scripts for something called Token Rambu, Hanamaru. Is that the one with the boys anthropomorphized as weapons?
Pass.
I think Token Rambu shows are that. But I don't feel like checking at the moment thoroughly, so because we spent a long time covering the creatives. Those are the main people I think I wanted to highlight. Of course, if we've forgotten anybody, the Seiyuu Daisuke Ono voiced Honda. Or other people, let us know.
One thing I'll mention is I don't know this chap's name offhand, but I am 99% certain the guy who voices Kawafuji is also the guy who voices Shofu Khan in Thunderbolt Fantasy, the lead character in that. But I could compare notes on that because my anime list still does not list Thunderbolt Fantasy as an anime.
As it shouldn't. As it fucking shouldn't. Listen, and this goes out to you too, H-Bomber guy, calling Ruby an anime. Anime means something. It doesn't just mean cool shit. It means something. Now, what exactly it means, I don't know, and there's a lot of different arguments I'll listen to, but it does not mean puppets, nor I think does it mean Ruby.
Might as well just call things eggplants at this point, and I'm done with it.
Okay, that's fair. So let's talk about this particular eggplant. So before we begin, and I think here is as good a place as any as to drop the old spoiler warning, because I think we're about to get into it. Do you have any other non-spoilery stuff to say?
Not immediately offhand, really, to be honest. Because everything I'm going to be discussing, because even though this is a healing anime, and you could probably already guess a number of the plot threads that come about in this show just by necessity. Okay, Gentleman goes to an island. I wonder if he might leave it or not at some point. I mean, that's arguably a spoiler, but at the same time, that seems pretty obvious.
I thought you meant, was there a beach episode and a bathhouse episode, like every anime? And the answer is yes, and they're good.
They're actually good.
They're really good.
Well, that's the thing. This show all around, you got my spoiler-free opinion. It is pretty good. I am going to admit freely, though, that unfortunately, a lot of the individual jokes seem to have left my memory. I think I laughed them at the time, but they don't seem to have much staying power for me. For some characters more than others. I mean, Naru, chaos deity that she is, there's plenty of stuff that I remember about her, and she's great in her own right. But broadly speaking, I think I would say that I definitely enjoyed my time with Barakamon, but I probably won't be talking about it much going forward, if you know what I mean. Although that being said, I did mention that this is a provident time for us to discuss this because we are covering Rako Shinjo, and they actually kind of tackle similar things. surprisingly enough. Although obviously this show tackles a different subject matter, which is calligraphy versus actual rakugo, and secondly, it is very much more subtext rather than outrightly stated like themes and ideas as it is with rakugo. But that's not to its detriment, I should stress, because obviously they're trying to accomplish very different things. But I do think it's interesting and neat to note that there are works out there that are very willing to criticize what are otherwise Japanese institutions of art and culture. Like, the rigidness of calligraphy and the standards that come about with it, and even the idea of, as I said before, you won the competition, but it's still shit, which doesn't make sense, of course, if you think about it. But then, well, I'll dive into that more later. So I'm really, really impressed with how the show, it does accomplish being funny. It does accomplish being lighthearted and refreshing. It's like having a nice cold drink sat on the porch, if you want to call it like that. But it does have things to say, which are not so heavily laid out for you, not slathered on. But they are there and they're handled well, in my opinion. So I think that, if you treat it like that as something that I don't want to say necessarily as disposable, but rather I guarantee people will have a good time with it. But I just don't know if necessarily it'll stick around with you after the fact, which is a shame, but maybe that's kind of also half the point, I don't know. We'll go through as we talk along, but yeah, I overall quite enjoyed this show. There's nothing explicitly wrong with it, save for some of the jokes, which I will get to in a bit.
What if that's by design? It's meant to you're meant to just go through you quick, so you'll want to rewatch it sooner than a very memorable show. It's like a tea. You can't remember some great glass of tea you had a month ago, but you want some tea, and then you just drink another tea. You just rewatch Barakamon again. All
right, watch another healing anime when you need it.
Yes, right. Well, I guess since you. Pardon me. Since you brought up Showa Rakugo Shinjo, I totally probably mispronounced it. Rakugo Shinju. Now would be as good a time as any for me to plug our Patreon. Because I know everyone listening to this now in the present time, early after its release, you are patrons. You already know the deal. You're on the $3 tier or above. You get it. But once this goes free to air, hopefully it will go into the ears of folks who are not patrons. And if you become a patron, you get all kinds of cool stuff. If you're on the $3 tier, you get to listen to these request line episodes. If you're on the $5 tier, you get to make the requests and listen to them. You get access to all kinds of watch-alongs, some at the $3 tier, some at the $5 tier. You get to be part of our cool Discord where, we have a good community of cool people who are chill and great, and we do game nights and movie nights where we all get together on Voice and indulge in the media.
We recently did a group watch of Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. We've also been doing group watches of things like Japan Sinks as well.
Ride Your Wave is the one coming up?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, very good. So yeah, patreon.com/WateryDesho. Check it out. But now, here we go. We're going to get into Barakamon, and as I alluded to at the top of the show, a bit of a different approach because this is an Iyashikei. I think... And like you said, you have watched it very recently, but a lot of it has left you. I think a lot of the specifics might have done for other people as well. And even if they didn't, I think the joy of this show, one of its chief joys, would be remembering the characters and thinking about the cast and just thinking about how much fun you've had with them, as opposed to sort of what they mean or who they are in some metaphor. As you say, there's stuff happening in the show. There's analysis to be had and themes to tease out, but probably just most of the fun is hanging out with this big group of characters from this island. I wish I knew the name of the island. Like
I think it was the Goto Islands, I believe.
I'll take it. Very good. They sell Barakamon phone straps, which is where the anime gets its name from. Is these little cell phone charms that have Barakamon written on them. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about each member of the core cast, and share like a fun memory or an anecdote or kind of what we like about them before we get into the thematic discussion. How does that sound, Shadon?
Sounds good to me.
Excellent. Okay, so let's start off with Seishuu or Handa, our main character. As we said, he is a disgraced artist now. He has been kind of forced into exile by his dad because he has punched the art director, a very kind of revered figure, publicly punched him as well, not like in some private room and the word got it. It was at the celebration of winning the grand prize in this calligraphy showing, and in front of a lot of people, all the important people in the world of calligraphy, he's punched this guy. So now he's got to go live on the island. And
imagine, just to give you a comparison, imagine if you were a video game developer and you decide to punch Hideo Kojima in the face.
Yes, because he said your game was unoriginal. It's like, it's a good game, but it's too much like Super Metroid. Make a different kind of game. And then you were upset because you've been slavishly following Super Metroid and all other Metroid type games to make the perfect Metroid. And you feel you've succeeded, and yet Kojima says this is not a good thing. But so like Handa starts out, and like I said, he's like super duper stressed, super duper like too good for this island. You know, these people, like, how am I gonna like survive out here in the boonies? Who are these weirdos? How am I gonna like do my art? How am I going to call people? I'm used to my lifestyle. But like his dad was thinking when he sent him there, not only will he like mature as an artist, because I want him to kind of go to the next level, but he'll mature as a person as well. And his dad, turns out, knows this from personal experience because he spent some time on this island as a young man. So for Handa, like what do you think about when you think of Handa? Like, do you have some specific fun moments or meaningful moments you want to highlight?
Well, I think what I'll start with is just by mentioning his relationship with the rest of the characters, because you essentially have a talented professional like him going to an island and everyone's constantly badgering him for something. And on paper, that can seem like, oh God, why don't they just leave him alone? But one thing I really want to note that I find very endearing about this show is that pretty much like from the halfway point of the first episode until the very end, like, yes, there are people constantly coming to see him for various things, even if it's just Naru to play with him. But they always do use, like, they call him sensei. Like, they have an amount of respect for him. Which I always thought was really deep. And I think it really sets the tone of the relationship that he has with a lot of the other islanders, even though he might not realize it at first, which is that, yeah, they are like, very extroverted, very like, hey, how's it going? Like, because it's a small community. They're obviously very close-knit. And when they have someone new in there, then they do want to become similarly close-knit. But there's never like a lack of respect from any of them towards him, which I think is key to the part of the show's like healing anime element. But it also makes all of their like jokes and such very palpable, because otherwise it could get very irritating very quickly if they were constantly interrupting him while he was working. Like, I just want to paint a fucking symbol, that's all I want to do, and
I just want to write a word.
Yeah, I just want to draw, and the constant, like, that would get grating very quickly. It would also be like not very funny, to be honest, to keep repeating that joke over and over. But one of the things that I like about Handa is that, like, we learn very quickly that he is, apart from calligraphy, like, he's generally very timid, very like scaredy cat kind of character. He overreacts to practically everything.
Yes.
And it feels to me like a contrast to him actually being a calligrapher, because I should stress, like, my own handwriting is so bad that, like, the last time I did it, people thought I was doing a tracing of, like, scratch marks at a crime scene. So when I say this, like, my understanding of calligraphy is that obviously it is about drawing Japanese symbols. I don't know if it's like Hiragi has. This is why I'm so bad at this. I don't know any of this stuff. Like, I don't know if like which specific ways, but it's drawing them essentially as art. But obviously there's a form and a technique to it. Clearly there's a lot of strict standards with it as well. So, like, obviously he's got to be very precise with what he's doing, and yet outside of that, he is like a little unhinged. Like he's clearly not very like world-wise, shall we say?
No,
he has no idea how to do. He has no idea how to deal with children. He has no idea how to deal with old children. He has no idea how to deal with adults. That kind of thing. So I like him a lot for that, because I think in part, like, he learns to embrace the more like extroverted side of him as the show goes on. But like, if I wanted to mention a specific moment, God, this is where I'm struggling now. I did say like a lot of the show had left my memory in terms of specifics. I suppose I can mention his relationship to Tamako, who is the nerdy girl that we mentioned before. So they kind of hit off in one of the episodes over the fact that she's a mangaka in training. Like, she wants to do her own manga, and obviously, like, with him like being a calligrapher, like, they have a lot. She has a lot of respect for him in that particular area. So he like says, "Hey, you know what? All right, I'll take a look at your manga," when she asks him for it. And this is the joy of the show's comedy. He literally pulls the manga out from inside the envelope and immediately puts it back in again, because he's horrified by this Junji Ito shit.
Just very explicit, like, blood. There's like organs hanging. It's rough.
I mean, she ain't writing a healing manga anytime soon, that's for sure.
No. But she's got, like, in contrast to her, demure manner otherwise, she has, like, these very definite ideas of what she wants her work to be that she'll very aggressively communicate to him.
Yeah. I'll mention as well, like, I think Sei's role in this show is to serve kind of as the foil to, or rather the straight man, I suppose, instead, to a lot of the other characters, because a lot of the humour is not derived from him cracking jokes, but rather being the butt of the joke or his overreactions to various things. But it's like the show never goes out of its way to go so far as to humiliate him. Like, like, things will happen, like, that will embarrass him, but he'll never like be so far as like be belittled by it, which I think is key as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, him as kind of like a relief character, or like a sounding board, or straight man, as you put it, to showcase the like wackiness and silliness of like all these other wonderful, delightful residents of this town. Yeah, and I think, like you said, he works really well. Joke-wise, the thing that sticks with me for some reason is like just his ability to fall down at the most inopportune times, like during the beach episode when he's supposed to be watching the kids, he's like concussing himself, just falling on the rocks multiple times.
Oh, the Sideshow Bob rate joke.
Yes. Yes. And there was a time where walking back from somewhere, I think a festival, he fell down like a path and basically like rolled in his backyard, but didn't realize he was in his own backyard and was like lamenting how he was lost and can't someone come rescue him because his ankle's hurt. And it's just incredibly funny to me. But I think the thing I like about him the most, I really like how his arc plays out, because it doesn't feel, to me, it didn't really feel unnaturally rushed. It didn't feel like, oh, we got to get this kind of maturity, have him be mature right now, either at the beginning or, at the end. They were like, oh no, we were supposed to develop this guy. Like, let's just make him. It felt very like kind of an organic growth And that was helped by things that they did at the midpoint of the show that I'll talk about a little later. But yeah, like, I don't know. I just kind of really believed the fact that, like, this guy who had been so sheltered, getting exposed to all these wonderful people and new ideas and kind of living independently, would, over the course of a few months, like, start to see, like, wow, like, I was a dick, you know? And man, I should change.
Learns that. He learns that actually quite quickly in the first episode, even when he's a bit nasty to Naru. When he kind of has the dual realization that, okay, I was shit to the director and I came out here to learn from my mistakes, but I'm now being mean to a child unnecessarily. But what's really neat about the following scene when they reconcile is that Naru, like, legitimately apologized to him. Like, we've described her, I mean, we're going to get to her in a little bit. We've described her as the Chaos Gremlin, and she is absolutely the Chaos Gremlin. Like, she is Mr. Mixapixlick, or whatever you want to name him, from Superman. Like, you know, she's just like the devil, like, in a trickster, you know? But she always, to my memory, never crosses the line, and she recognizes when she's done wrong. Like, she has a certain boundary that she will not pass to the point where she's legitimately causing, like, real harm or genuine annoyance to people. And she apologizes to him profusely in that scene, which it's to me feels like a really neat parallel to, like, what Say Himself has not yet done, which is apologize to the director. Yeah. Like, she seems in her own way very much ahead of him in terms of maturity, despite the fact that she collects, like, you know, cicada shells and stuff like that. And there's a joke which involves her grabbing a sea slug and right. Yeah, there's some jokes here which have censorship pixels on them because the joke is meant to be that, oh, it's like a dick, and I'm like, no.
No, I forgot about that. I totally forgot about that. That's like one of two instances where the humor in this show, it just gets too crass for my taste. That was a miss for sure.
Especially given that it's, you know, a little girl doing that. Like, no, yeah, exactly. Please no.
Yeah.
I did not need to see that. There's also the scene in which another character decides to stick two fingers up Say's ass. And it's just like, no, thank you. I did not need to see the Faust Super again from Guilty Gear. Thank you very much. It is literally the same thing, if you know what I'm referring to.
Oh, yeah. Well, so this is a cultural difference, right? That you made, like, I think rightfully probably are a little uncomfortable with, but it's this children's game in Japan called Concho. And if you Google, like, Concho butt poking game or something, or just Google Japanese child game finger ass or something, like some combination of.
I'm not putting that in Google. I'll get fucking arrested. I'll get fucking arrested. You're trying to get me sent to the fucking locker.
just Google Concho then, and it's like weird, you know, to us, but it is apparently a very, like, normal sort of thing that kids do over there. So yeah. I mean,
the thing is, right, these jokes, like, that did miss me. Like, I have to say though, visually they're still well executed. I can at least distinguish that. Like, the color literally drains from Handa when that happens. Which I suppose, like, if you'll allow me, is now probably a good time for me to talk about the general way I believe the comedy works and why I, for the most part, really liked it. So, Doc, I don't think you've listen.
Before we move on from Concho, let me just say, me telling you, oh, it's a Japanese thing, is not me shutting you down. I just wanted to put that information out there so that it is not seen as, like, a random sort of thing. And, you know, that may or may not change your opinion about it. Like, if not, it's completely fine. It's not something I'd be comfortable being on the, being the butt of, so to speak, at all. But, like, apparently there are, like, statues of it. And, like, it's just this common kids prank, and it comes from the name. Like, the kids shout "Concho" as they, like, poke him with the two fingers. So people apparently also do it in Korea, and there's, like, there's like preferred techniques for those who are serious enough to practice, according to this Did You Know Facts website about
Can I point something out? Like, if you've ever seen that JoJo's Part 4 episode where Rohan has to keep his back to the wall constantly, that's what I'll be doing if I ever visit Japan, if this is a thing that kids do.
It is indeed a thing.
Jeez,
I don't know if it's like a thing that is going to happen to you in Tokyo as a foreigner. I don't know, but I would like to think that it's the sort of thing that they would do. That, you know, kids play pranks all the time, but like I think hopefully it's the sort of thing where it's sort of they would do it to people they know, and I don't know, have some sort of like at least tangential relationship with, and you won't have to like worry about this sort of thing if you ever visit Japan.
Fingers crossed. At least my finger's not theirs.
Right. The last thing I wanted to say about Sei, though, before you got into the comedy, because this doesn't have to do with the comedy, but just like, again, like from the beginning to the end, it's such a great contrast that I never feel like at any point in the timeline of the show it feels weird, rushed, or awkward. Like at the beginning, you know, he punches this guy who doesn't like his work. He is very grumpy about the island. And then in either the last or next to last episode, like when he goes back to talk to the director and just like bows so deeply and gives this very contrite, sincere apology that both the director and Kawafuji are just sort of like, wow, this really happened.
And then he spills a drink on him.
Oh yeah, no, what? No, he throws the coffee. Listen, I was going to get to this later, but look, I totally understand that, not the spilling of coffee on someone, but like the emotions that would get you there. He feels so vulnerable putting his work out into the world again. Like in that moment, I really felt like I got that character, at least that aspect of him. Like he feels terrified that his art is going to get looked at by other people and judged. How scary. Like yes, it's fucking terrifying.
Imagine putting work out into the world every week. That is pretty scary. Oh shit, we're doing it now. No!
I've ceased to think of this as art. Or to think of it as having fun with you.
You know what, that's definitely a pull quote for the back of our box there. Just to go back to what you said earlier.
God.
I've ceased to think of this as art.
I've ceased to think of this as art.
Incredible.
All right, tell me about the comedy.
Well, what you actually said there is a perfect segue, because I'll just mention as well that when this show wants to have its serious moments, it will allow it. Like, it's not all completely a joke all the way through. Like, the apology is sincere. Like, the stuff with Naru before I mentioned was sincere. It's not, like, heavy or anything like that, but it is certainly there and serious when it needs to be, and it handles the tone well. But, okay, so Doc, I think you and I have discussed this particular film I'm going to bring up now before, and I'm fairly confident that at the time we last talked about it, you said you'd not seen it. So let's see if this is true again. I just feel like, I wish I had dice I could roll here for this, like, you know, or a little drum kit to start going do-do-do-do-do. Have you seen Airplane by the Zucker Brothers?
I have not, no.
Okay, have you seen The Naked Gun?
Oh, I've seen parts of some of them in a long time ago. I haven't sat down to see a full one of those ever, and the bits and pieces I've seen of some of them were a very long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for me, like, Airplane is one of the greatest comedy movies ever made. It's aged mostly very well, save for certain references about things of the period, and also certain jokes like about black people as well, which is not great, but anyway. Point being, though, like, the way that the humor in that film works is that anything really goes for, like, a joke. Like we're going to suddenly have, like, you know, this character pouring gasoline on himself because he doesn't want to talk to this guy anymore, that kind of thing. A lot of it feels random, but it's handled, like, very well, in my opinion, where anything can go as long as it's not a reference to a specific point in time. Like, with certain exceptions, like there's a Ronald Reagan joke in there, so good luck getting that if you're under the age of 60. But anyway, the reason I mentioned that is a lot of the jokes in like Barakamon like feel like they come completely out of like left field in terms of like how they're presented. There's one joke, for example, which is completely apropos to nothing, which is Naru picks up a stick and an RPG style prompt of black text saying Naru obtains slightly longish stick, and that does not appear again in the entire show. There is no reason for it to be there. It just happens. And that's the kind of humour that the Zucker brothers did in a lot of their films, where, like, there's obviously the line, for example, where, one of the guys in the controls tower, I think it might be Lloyd Bridges' character, says, they're miles off course, that's impossible. They're on instruments. And then you have a hard cut to the guys in the airplane actually playing musical instruments. It feels kind of like that, in my opinion. And I think that's why I found the humour so good, because it always like felt fresh, like there's something new coming along that wasn't there before. Like, obviously, like the JoJo's reference, for example. There's the amazing bit in episode 3 of Naru trying to speak English, and she's got a completely random face that, like, I don't know what that face was, but it was there, all right. And then, of course, you have... Sorry, I've forgotten her name already. You've got Tamako, like, talking about manga where, like, she goes completely apeshit and, like, talking about it. And, speaking of which, I need to mention one of my favourite comedy moments involving her, which is she narrates to us, the audience, about how she found out about Boy Love manga, and she was very shocked by it. Very, oh my, this is the forbidden fruit. I can't believe this. So, separately... what was his name again? Hiroshi, the blonde son, the village chief, has given Handa a bunch of calligraphy ink that was very difficult to find. So this scene happens with that, and then Tamako, like, she's like, boy, I love, like, it's poisoned my brain, and she comes around the corner, sees, like, Seishuu and Hiroshi hugging, very, like very strong hug, and...
Because he fell!
Yeah, he fell. But she, like, with this on her mind, like, thinks, is this a Boy Love scene happening right now? And it's like a nuclear explosion going off in her face, which just completely disintegrates her. Like, obviously that doesn't really happen. It's not legit, like, actually diegetically real. But it's just amazing. It's very well animated as well, for that matter. But it's just an amazing joke that comes, like, almost out of nowhere, but feels like a great visual gag for him. So that's the kind of style of humour here where, like, it will be kind of absurdist in places. It won't make a lot of sense, like, literally speaking. It's not like, puns necessarily, whatever. There are some of those here and there. But it works. It's sharp, it's quick, and the jokes keep flowing. They don't hang on one joke and keep talking about it constantly and constantly and constantly. Like, they'll always have something new coming your way, which keeps things fresh.
Yeah, and, like, just the different personalities together playing off each other. Like, they don't even really have to be making jokey jokes for it to be fun and for it to put a smile on my face, at least. So, like, they could warm me up for, like, a really good joke by just, like, having everybody at Sensei's house dicking around. And it's funny because, like, there's good banter between them. It's always fantastic banter. Like, he has that kind of relationship with Naru and Tamako and Miwa where, he busts their balls and they get on him, and, like, there's different phases.
I have to say, I think the reason that Handa and Miwa get along so well is because they're both insect people. They have little tuft of hair.
Indeed.
In the middle.
Yes, the antenna.
The Lupina disease, as we call it.
I didn't even notice that about Seishuu until the last episode. I was really bummed out. I had gone the whole show without noticing.
Oh, God damn it.
This is very disappointing.
I hope he gets that treated.
Did you mention, I had to step away from my headphones for a second. Did you mention the, like, as one of the out of nowhere jokes, the, like, weird face that Naru makes at the beginning of episode 3?
Yes.
So what is that? Like, what is that a reference to anything in particular? Because it's,
I
like,
have no
iconic.
idea. It's incredible though. But what I like about that as well is that when she talks with Handa later, because all this is her trying to read English, and everyone's very impressed at that. Like, yeah. I don't know why this relates to Massa. It must be a cultural thing, but I still found it funny anyway. this is also the joy of this show in that it is ludicrously well animated. Like, it's... I mean, it seems fairly standard style-wise, and obviously it goes all into absurdist gags where, like, everyone suddenly gets, like, kind of chibi faces and stuff like that. Or they do things like, you know, where Handa, like, literally throws Naru out of his house no less than, I think, 3 times. But, like, that scene of the face, for example, like, when Handa challenges her to read something else out in English that she can, like, her face just seamlessly, in a great Saka moment, just changes from this, like, big... like, you know, block-jawed, like, you know, masculine face, back to a normal one, like a deflating balloon. Yes. And then we cut to opening credits, which helps sell the joke even more.
Oh man, so good.
That's why part of this is also good, because editing and cutting is a key part of comedy. Like, let it hang just a little bit, cut away, and then you're like, that's great, I love it. You don't hang on it too long. Like, the comedic pacing and timing is pretty exquisite in this show, I must say.
Absolutely. And it is also, I feel, never like hating on its characters. It's never cruel, which I always have appreciated in comedies. I mean, I use this example a lot, but like, you know, The Office is sort of the standard bearer for like modern TV, popular comedy show that like is really cruel to its characters, and that kind of humor only goes so far with me. I mean, I enjoyed it to a point when I did watch it, but like it just got to be too much for me. The cruelty in the humor, the making fun of, the laughing at rather than the laughing with. And this show is always laughing with its cast, be it like, you know, the Chaos Gremlin, the middle school ladies, the neurotic professor, or the elderly people that populate the town. They all are quirky and do weird stuff, but it's always very kind of a warm comedy, which I love. And I think this is like a nice transition to talking about Naru, because we mentioned the stick and the face. And so who is Naru? Naru Katoishi is, what is she, like? Is she 6? I think she's 6. And has her 7th birthday.
Unless she's like an ancient, like, you know...
oh, no, don't do it. Don't say it.
Okay. She's an ancient trickster demon.
I may look 12, but I'm
not
old.
Not that. Not that. I meant more as in like that she's just complete anarchy, like distilled into a small child with a heart, though.
Oh, it's such heart, and she's such a believable child character. She is a bit of a latchkey kid, but a very wholesome one. And she does, her grandfather is kind of her only like supervising presence, but like he's a farmer, so he has to be in the fields all day, every day, and he cannot watch her. So she floats around. And for whatever reason, she's not in school. It is said, you know, they do have schools, but like, I guess, I don't know, maybe I've misjudged her age, or I don't know what age they start school in Japan, but she doesn't seem like she goes to school, or maybe she does, but like we just kind of see her during her off times or something like that. But anyway, she's, you know, parentless. And is often crashing at Sei's house on the island, getting into trouble, making life hard for him in a very, you know, charming way. Hanging out with the other kids on the island, be they older kids who are teaching her inappropriate phrases, which is amusing, or like the younger kids that you know, get up to fun little kid stuff like bug collecting. And she's a delight. She's never like really an irritant, in my opinion.
I agree.
So what was did you already talk about your favorite Naru moment with the RPG joke?
It's just so out there, like it, but that's part of why I love it.
It's so good.
But yeah, like also when she first appears, like the way we're introduced to her, she's hiding in a little cupboard inside Handa's new house. And when I say like little chaos gremlin, like that's literally how the show visually presents her, like with this like really creepy smile. But then she just comes out and she's just fun. Like she calls him a Junon boy, and there's something about the way about there's something about the way about how her voice actress says that just really, really makes me chuckle.
Right.
Like,
I don't even know what Junon boy means, but it's fun.
I'm going to assume it's someone who never got past Junon in Final Fantasy VII.
Right. That's a good yes. Let's pretend that's what it is. I enjoy this. And I love the fact that her sort of the localizers / translators like kind of gave her dialogue that affectation of, being a child, but also being from a very rural area. Because, she says things like, instead of saying, Sensei, there are a lot of fun events that I'd like to share with you. She's like, there's gobs of stuff I want to do with ya. And it's so cute. It's great.
I agree.
And there's like a really heartwarming moment with her that I want to talk about later in the themes section. So we'll move on to Tamako Arai, who we've already talked about quite a bit. She is the nerdy middle school girl. She is, I guess, well, no, are they middle school? They might be high school. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think it's mentioned that they're late middle schoolers, as I understand it.
Yeah, maybe like they're starting their freshman year of high school. Well,
we've got the universal standard of how to tell how old someone is in a Japanese high school, which is what's the class number? And I think theirs is 2-1.
Okay.
Or possibly 2-2. So that would make them the same age as the characters of Persona 4, appropriately enough. So they'd be 16.
Well, if that's the case, they are in high school. So there are three.
There we go.
There are 3 years of Japanese high school, and I don't know how many years of middle school. Yeah, but I know that Hiro, who we'll talk about later, is I think at least a year older than them. But yeah, no, I guess that they're second years. Anyway, like she is like very quiet, and she is sort of like you said, a mangaka in training and fighting against. She has like an internal battle with herself, like not wanting to be seen as a fujoshi, despite like really loving manga and really being fascinated with BL and such like. She just has these really funny internal battles rolling around on her bed or elsewhere, trying to shake quote unquote impure thoughts out of her head, but also still being fascinated by them. Because apparently, like when she was a little kid, she got like a trunk mailed to her, and one of the manga it had in it was BL. And she like does this thing where she like throws it on the ground and like walks away from it, but then later comes back and it's like, yeah, this is for me. It's good.
Bit tsundere about it. Like, no, I'm totally not into this. Maybe I am.
Maybe I am. Maybe I am into it. We talked a lot about her. So I think we could probably move on to Miwa Yamamura. She is like the erstwhile companion of Tamako. They're 99% of the time, if you see one, they're together. She's much sportier. She is the one who, like, she's very messy, a lot more of a tomboy, sort of surface level, diametrically opposed to Tamako. Very messy, like always, it's messing up Sensei's house.
Speaking, you've actually just. I was about to say something, and you just give me the perfect lead there. Why did they have Marilyn Manson posters and also Slipknot posters?
There was also a professional wrestling poster of someone.
Yeah, like that's. I like. Just to be clear, like Miwa, like she does not present as someone who would necessarily be into that, and that's fine. Like people don't necessarily need to, but if I like showed, I guarantee if I took her character design and said, "Okay, what music do you think this person is into?" I don't think they would end up suggesting Slipknot.
It could be one of those things where, like, I don't know. I feel like more people than you think might be into like metal or metal adjacent music. In Japan, it might have more of a fan base. And when it's foreign music, it is English. So like, and English is a fairly ubiquitous in cities there, but they are rural folks. So I don't know, maybe it's just like cool, hard rock music that she doesn't really understand all the lyrics, like a fan of like J-metal over here or whatever.
I don't know anyone who's a fan of J-metal. Not me, no.
Right, yes. It's or maybe it's real. Maybe they're Tamako's posters, and that's how she gets inspired to draw like dudes' intestines hanging out. She just listens to Slipknot all the time.
That actually makes way too much sense.
Could be. But those two kind of squat in Sensei's house before Handa moves there. It's their sort of private base with Naru. And they often take care of Naru, despite like also having some fun with her, teaching her like, again, inappropriate phrases and things like that.
Oh, the SM club thing.
Right. My cousins who were, they did that with me as well. So I get it. It's
that explains so much.
They taught me all the swear words and then had me list them off, and it made them laugh a lot. Just be a little tiny child saying swear words. So Miwa, did you have any like fun moments with her? I mean, I really enjoy all of her sort of objections to Sensei's. I keep calling him Sensei, getting into that habit. Handa's calligraphy training. Like they enter a phase of the show like midway through where they're trying to do their summer homework and they have some calligraphy and they're like, "Oh, hey, Sensei, help us out." And he's like, "I can't just help you. You have to, this is not a like we need to do real training. When I'm done with you, you'll be prize winners." And Miwa is very much like, "Oh no, this is horrible."
Immediately regretting that mistake. Well, there is a amusing moment at the end when indeed Tamako does get the gold in the calligraphy contest.
Yes.
But Miwa only gets silver. Oh dear.
She can't stand it. She's been taught like perfectionism by her sensei. Fucking Handa at that point.
Maybe that was foreshadowing for the ending, though. You never know.
Right, for sure. Yeah, she's so much fun. I really like her dad too, Iwao Yamamura. He's like a super tough guy. Like I think
paint my boat.
Doesn't Handa think he's like a yakuza at some point?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that joke is made.
Well, that's joke's actually made twice, believe it or not, but one of them is not at Iwao's expense. But we'll get to the character that is referring to in a little bit.
There's like he like I said, so he's why has the name left me? Just because I'm not looking at the paper. She's Miwa's dad, and there's a really fantastic episode where he wants Handa to write calligraphy on the side of his new boat. I forget what he's called the boat. But yeah, he's gonna do it. He's like so pumped because this isn't just some pattern he's buying to spray paint on. It's a real life calligraphy master. And I'm gonna get him to write on my boat, and it's gonna be rad.
Which is sort of like saying, "Hey, you know what? I know full well you paid the inside of that chapel. How about you do some decals on my car?"
It kind of is like that, isn't it?
They're in the same very broad ballpark, but they're not quite the same thing. So obviously Handa's completely and utterly like, okay, I have to do an angle, I have to practice, I can't just simply start painting on there, which leads of course to an amazing Naru moment where she's put her hands, as a child would, in the ink and just goes, dunk!
Yep.
And puts a handprint on it.
That's
poor Sei, like his soul just left his body when that happened.
I love that entire episode because it has like these amazing comedic moments where like Sei's been practicing to like do the do the calligraphy on the boat to get the right size and everything like that. He uses all these practice boards and like while he's talking about like now I'm used to writing in paint. I'm going to do awesome. Like I've been through the rigors of training. He's like narrating this, and the camera pans over all the things he's written on the practice boards, and they're like Demon Dad, Yakuza, all this really incendiary insults about Iwao, and that's really
great. It's just a shame he didn't write it in the Yakuza video game font.
It's true. No, it's so true. And then the fact that he finds them later is amazing. But he probably is only acting like he's insulted, but he's probably like, yeah, I'm putting out the correct image. Like people are picking up what I'm putting down. But there's also like a really cool like moment, that you talked about with the kids putting Naru and Kenta, like putting their hands on the boat, ink covered hands. That is something that like jump starts Sei out of his like artistic paralysis, because he's just like standing there looking at the boat frozen, like you might do if you were an artist like in front of a blank canvas. Like, man, I know what I'm doing, but like what the fuck do I do? Like I'm paralyzed. I can't begin. Like this vast white void and for this blankness. Like, where do I start? I can't pick a starting point, because once I start, I'll have a path forward, but is it the right path? I don't know. What do I do? And like, just the fact that she helped him get out of it in that very simple way. And then he has to like cover the handprints with his paintbrush. Like, it's so cool and so endearing.
Well, that's one of the general ideas of the show, which we'll come back to in a bit when we get to the themes. But a lot of Sei's like moments of inspiration, they don't just happen in a vacuum. They happen in relation to events that he experiences. Yeah. And I think that's one of the show's key messages. But we'll come back to that in a bit, and I'll explain it in more detail.
We have Hiroshi Kido, Hironi. He is the blonde, bottle blonde, son of the village chief, Yujiro Kido, and wife Ako. We can talk about them all as a family if you want, but they're pretty fun background characters. Like Hiroshi begins the show very antagonistic towards Sei, thinking, oh, here's a stuck-up city man who is like super talented at everything, amazing. But they have this moment where he learns like actually he's just like a person who's struggling like me, and like any talent he has was really born from trial and error and effort, and it's very sort of Japanese idea that he needs to internalize, right, about hard work producing these incredible results. And
he actually fits a similar role to Sei, actually, as it happens, in that he serves also kind of as a straight foil, but just one who happens to actually be living in the village. Like, the first scene we get of him is him, like, talking with his parents, and they're, how do I describe this? Like, they're the hip, they're the hip mum, hip dad, like, kind of thing, where they're constantly joking and all that, like, and they say the worst thing possible, which is, it's okay, you gotta be, it means you'll be normal. And I that line is the most horrifying thing in this entire show, as far as I'm concerned. You'll be normal. No, absolutely not. Normal's boring. Normal is literally average. Fuck that noise.
Yeah, and he realizes this like important thing of like, I think he feels like upon reflection he's kind of been entitled. Like, he's put out a little bit of effort, but expected minimal effort to be rewarded with maximal results. And I think he just needs to see like people like devoting like their life to something, like this maximal kind of effort, and only then will you get those kind of huge results. Like, and that I think kind of helps motivate him, because his thing is that he's just not very motivated. And then you hear later on in the show, it's like, yeah, like, next year I'm going to buckle down and study for these exams and get a job to get off this island, right? But his parents are really funny too. I mean, like, his mom like has the couple of
now
really
Sei,
great bits.
I know you're in the hospital, and I know that you're like new to the island, and I reckon you might be single. This is a nurse, and she's cool and all, but she's also married. And then, of course, Sei, in his infinite wisdom, decides to respond as if I'd flirt with her.
I know. Whoops.
And okay.
Oh, no,
listen,
I didn't mean that.
Listen, everyone, right? Coming from a gentleman who has been single for a very long time, I want to point something out. Even I know, first off, you don't say that. You don't say that at all. But secondly, you especially do not say that when you are at their mercy in a medical environment.
Yeah. That's a
Do you
delicate...
want to know what's in this syringe?
It's like a
I mean, there are
delicate
mentions of
refusal
suppositories. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the suppositories. That's their number one go-to treatment. The suppository. And that nurse comes, I can't remember her name, but she comes back later as a goldfish scooping pro. Which is she's a king at that, or a queen, rather, I mean to say. It's everybody's got some talent, right? Hers is scooping goldfish with that weird spoon. But Akko kiddo, right? The mom has some great bits of like wanting to feel like a woman again by delivering food to a handsome single man, and how like making the food invigorates her, and their husband's totally cool with it, and Hiro's just like, Mom, shut up, please. Yeah, this is embarrassing.
Making food for you doesn't do it anymore. No, sorry.
Nope. It's not revving my engine. We have someone you've already...
Nine that way, I need to say, but rather just like, you like to make food for someone, your son's right there, but like, nope. No.
Oh yeah, and they also are not risky because they always like what she cooks. And this represents not only a handsome man for her to cook for again, but like, someone that there's a risk there. She's got to be on her number one game to make good food so that he'll definitely like it. We have someone you've mentioned also, Kawafuji Takao, who is Honda's best buddy, and I guess his like manager, or handler. Yeah,
they were friends
something?
In high school, and then they've actually changed over time to the point where he is indeed managing him, as you say. Kawafuji, like, there's something I also need to mention, which is that there are moments of comedy outside of the island, but maybe this is just me. They didn't feel quite as pronounced out there. It seemed to be more serious. Like, obviously, like, you've got the visual way in which, Sei loses his shit after he punches the director.
Right.
But, like, Kawafuji in particular, I want to make a note of this just again ahead of time here. Kawafuji comes to the island at, like, the midpoint of the show's run, just to check in on Sei, if I recall correctly, especially since at some point he breaks his cell phone. And what's amazing is he gets introduced to all the people on the island, and they get him absolutely shit-faced.
Yes, they do.
which is great. But while he's actually interacting with these people, like he himself being an outsider, as Sei was/is, like he himself also becomes like a straight man to the jokes, which is great in its own right. Don't get me wrong. Especially, I think was he also in that scene where no, that was actually, sorry, I'm getting mixed up with someone else. But anyway, point being, where he like starts being on the receiving end of these jokes and like pranks and whatnot. But that only happens really while he's on the island, which is something neat I think is worth pointing out for the later discussion. But yeah, Kawafuji's great in his own right as well. He also like really cuts loose, like, because he this is something I actually know, surprisingly enough, which is that if you have tattoos in Japan, you are basically marked as like being a member of the Yakuza. And one of the things I want to make clear on it is that I like the fact that he's clearly prone, like, or seems like he has some comic sensibility to him. Like, he's not completely uptight, but when he actually gets to the island, of course, and interacts with all of the community members there, that's when, like, the true Kawafuji seems to come about a bit. Which is also plays into the fact that people start calling him a Yakuza as well because he has tattoos. Because in Japan, if you have tattoos, then you are, like, because they have been for so long, like, seen as a part of, like, the Yakuza lifestyle, that people associate with that in the cultural sense. Which is also why you'll never see me go to Japan and take my shirt off. Very sorry, all the Japanese listeners who are ladies out there who might be interested. None of you. Anyway.
I didn't know you had tattoos.
So, I have two of them, actually. Both of them are dragons. One on my right arm and one on my left.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So, like Kawafuji, like, I mean, the thing with him getting absolutely blitzed by the, blitz drunk while chatting with the town members is really great in its own right. But, yeah, he does pretty well. I try and remember some specific moments. But if you've got it you want to chime in with, Doc, please do.
I mean, I think you hit the main ones. Like, he's wasn't like a huge source of comedy for me, other than him coming to the island and getting lost and hating it, and then getting drunk, and then recovering hangover, and then basically like his last afternoon there, they go fishing, and then he leaves, which I found really funny because it was supposed to be his vacation. But no, I think you summed it up pretty well on Kawafuji. So I think we can move on to Kanzaki Kosuke, who is like the high schooler who is a calligrapher, an up-and-comer, and seen as Handa's rival, because, like, so did he win a grand prize? In episode 3, I think it is, like, Honda has at that point submitted something for a competition. He gets the second place, and it is sorry, I'm forgetting his name now as well. It's Kosuke's submission that gets first, so he is like surpassed him because it turns out he was inspired by Honda. I'm guessing he was quite the fan of that one line from Star Wars way back when. Remind me.
He's, oh my god, for once I was but the apprentice, now I am the master.
Oh, yeah, right. Yes. It's like, so secretly that's how he feels, but like outwardly, like he's very deferential and polite and like, oh, you're the senpai, you're the sensei. Like I am, but like you see that like part of him come out when they're fishing, like, I'm the fucking best. I'm going to get the monster fish. He's like becomes ultra competitive in that moment. But I think for the most part, he probably does feel like the sort of junior, the apprentice, like, because he's idolized and emulated Honda, like has this fucking fan book of all the interviews he's done and all the pictures he's been, like the photo ops he's been in, and this mortifies Honda. Yeah.
Imagine if you had social media. Like, I've got all the passwords to your Tumblr and whatnot. Oh no.
I followed you by, like, you left the geolocation on your Instagram on, and so I have a map of your movements.
Oh god. Well, what would be funny if that map of movements then like translated into a calligraphy symbol for the words "fuck you."
Yes, that would rule.
That would be a joke fitting with the show, I think. But for me, like my favorite thing with it, and I may be getting mixed up with Kawafuji, but the scene when they try to board the airplane and are trying to go through security, and he just keeps getting fucking like. Beep, and everyone's just losing them.
That is Kawafuji.
Oh, it's Kawafuji's. It's shite.
But listen,
never mind.
That is an incredible moment. Like it's might be my favorite moment with Hiro and Miwa when they just, for whatever reason, find it hilarious when people get beeped in the metal detector. Like it's not that funny, but the fact that they find it funny is funny.
Just imagine, like, being able to do that in an airport these days. It's just...
yeah. Right.
That's how you know this island is laid back.
Yes. And I don't even see, like, there might be, like, one guard. But, that scene kills me. And I love Kawafuji for that moment. But a great moment with Kosuke is when Naru and it might be Kenta. They just start making paper airplanes out of Kosuke's fan book. Just
yes,
them around. It's incredible, and Kosuke is none too pleased with this, but Honda gets a kick out of it. And at first, when like the episode prior to Kosuke entering the show, like they show in the after credits or at the end of the episode before the credits, like Kao Fuji and this kid have landed, Kosuke. And I'm like, oh man, more characters? That's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't want them to take the spotlight off the characters that are already here. But it turns out that Kosuke Kanzaki, I think, serves this valuable function to further push along Seishuu Handa in his journey, because he can look at Kosuke and see a lot of his former self and think, boy, just looking at this person, there's just a lot of qualities I dislike, and I was/am like this. I've got to figure out how to move on from being this way. Because he too, like Handa, in addition to being kind of a stuck-up, self-absorbed, only interested in calligraphy, like kind of dude, he also his whole artistic kind of shtick is to slavishly copy someone else. And Handa, of course, that's the whole reason he was sent to the island, because the director thinks that his calligraphy is like a child's copybook. Like these are form appropriate letters down to the T, that it's all sort of like craft and not very much like
very
art.
rote. Yeah. Well, that in of itself is an interesting thing to think of, that Kosuke takes such inspiration from Handa, even though Handa himself is accused of being purely mechanical, in the way he produces these things. There's no organic nature to them.
Yeah.
No life to them, if you want to call it that. And then you have someone who imitates him so well that the risk is he becomes, susceptible to doing that. And indeed, we kind of see that towards the end of the show. But I think that might also be one of the ideas of the show itself, which I'll get to in a bit. But yeah,
totally.
So next one we have on our list is Kensa Uhama, the shaved head kid. Basically, imagine me minus beard and also a child. There you go.
He is a rowdy one.
Yeah.
And he's,
speaking of the
go ahead.
Of the beetle loving,
yes,
he's a beetle loving kid, and there's an entire scene dedicated to Handa trying to catch various beetles and being pretty terrible.
He's so bad because he hates insects, and he sort of slightly overcomes it for Naru's sake, because he wants to get her something cool for her birthday, and finally, after trying to get so many beetles and accidentally getting a beetle and killing it by falling on it, he has like a scarab, and he's like, I've done it, and then it, of course, pinches his hand because he's holding it wrong. But he's worked up the courage to hold it, which is something.
There's also that amazing scene involving Kenta saying Naru's being bullied by the kids around town, and
the kids.
I didn't realise we'd get Barakamon's version of the Shelbyville skit from The Simpsons, but here we are. I was glad they didn't end up going to a lemon tree.
Those are like if you age those kids up about 10, 15 years, they are background characters in Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh God!
I mean, they're just
sounds about right.
A corner little gang. Yeah, that episode was great. The playground war. They started fucking playing dodgeball, and just the hero and Handa just full power, full speed, annihilated the little kids with the dodgeball. So mean.
But funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Good old Kenta, though. I think he's there to be chaotic like Naru and kind of play off of her chaos and increase it. But he also is kind of jealous of Handa for all the attention Naru gives Handa.
Yes.
I think that's an important part of his character for a few episodes anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The last two characters that we'll mention, we have Aki, who is Miwa's younger brother. The thing I like about Aki is that he doesn't actually have a lot of jokes or do a lot of comedic things, but he's probably the smartest person in the village.
Yes.
He comes across as very, very chill.
I would say a bit like dry, like
yeah, very dry.
Very.
I'm above this shit.
I'm above this. Yes, like less like. I mean, you're right. He is chill and laid back, but it's like the vibe is almost like he's just very straight laced and in his own, not in his own world, but yeah, like just feels like I am above the shenanigans that happen in this town. My favorite scene involving Aki is when he can't help but laughing at this. I think his grandma owns the store.
With the one phone in the entire village.
Having to say how to use a like a dial tone old phone. It's like
a rotary phone.
A rotary phone. It's like watching one of those like kids react videos on YouTube.
It's amazing how like it fits that bill, like of how the kids are always teaching the adults how to use technology, but this one is actually ancient. It's a great subversion of that trope. Like, I mean, I've talked about before, like how I've taught my dad to like plug shit into shit, but I don't know how to use a rotary phone. But I think it's quite a witty, like, version of that. That's quite neat.
It is. It made me laugh so much, and again, just reminded me of like, kids play Mega Man for the NES. And they're just like, what is this? It's so hard. I hate this. Or kids, you see like a television or an old radio. I don't know. And then last character.
What's this CRT thing?
Right. Yeah. Why is it not flat?
What are these free cables? Why are these free cables that are color coded? I don't know what these are. What's a SCART lead?
Our last character is Kusaku Kotoishi, who is the farming man who we mentioned earlier, Naru's grandpa, or as he's dubbed by Sei in the first episode, hilariously, first villager.
He's the shuttle bus for the airport.
Yeah, what's that?
He's the shuttle bus for the airport.
Exactly. The fucking Yujiro is supposed to be there. I love that their village chief is like one of the most irresponsible people. It like really sets the tone for the island of, know what? We're just we're not uptight. We're a little lackadaisical. It's good. But yeah, the grandpa, a lot of fun. The shuttle bus from the airport, very wise. Also gets Handa addicted to like this food that apparently his mother thinks is weird and strange. We don't really have to talk about, and you can talk about Grandpa in Kotoishi in a second, but like, did you like Handa's mother? Because I was really down on the way they portrayed her. I did not care for her.
I think that's one of the other areas where maybe the comedy went too far. Because I think the intent behind that was to show her, like, for us to be like, oh, she's the overprotected mother. It's like, it's meant to be funny. But yeah, I do think that went a little bit too far, both in terms of the number of times they tried that joke. When the actual lesson that comes of that scene, I think, is very fair. And that's why I think that I don't disagree with her behaving that way in that. But I think that trying to milk so much humor from it, like, kind of, like, it wasn't welcome to keep doing that, where she was constantly freaking out a bit too much. Like, there's being overprotective, like, of your kids, like, and saying, like, he's gone to Japan, he's learned all these wicked ways and all that. But there's a way of making that come across that can still be comedic without it constantly being her, like, oh, my boy is gone. Like, I think it's overcooked a little bit, that particular comedic beat.
I mean, maybe it's just because I have, like, a terrible / non-existent relationship with my mother that I just did not have any time for this, like, overprotection. Because that was sort of the source of our, my mother and I's kind of, the genesis of our beef, if you will, is that quality in her. And so, yeah, I was very much like, oh boy, great, this is great. And then, like, it's one of the rare times, you mentioned Barakamon not dwelling on jokes. Like, they really spent a lot of the time in that episode really hammering that home. Whereas even if they like,
sorry to interrupt, but when you said like that you weren't you weren't down with her because she reminded you like of your own relationship. I actually thought you were going to say like you weren't down it because you disagreed with her and you were totally cool with sending your kids to an island just to fend for themselves.
Well, listen, if you're talking about my grown ass child, well, I guess I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it. Also, I feel like in our own culture, I will have very much less of a say over the life of my adult children as maybe is the case in a lot of Japanese families. But what is I going to say? I don't know. They just, even if the show does like use a similar joke a lot, I feel like much of the time it's disguised because they don't do it over and over again in the same episode. But yeah, they do it there, and I didn't really like his mom. She was kind of whatever. But yeah, those are like the main cast members. I think we touched on pretty much everybody. I mean, there's a few unnamed kids and villagers that kind of have like, a quarter of an episode, even though they get named. But that's the cast, and I don't know, I just had so much fun with them. I think it's a fantastic cast and a group that I really, really enjoyed spending time with. They did not wear out their welcome.
No, they did not. I mean, I feel bad in that I don't feel like I have very strong memories of like a lot of the more specific moments in the show. But at the same time, I do sincerely mean it when I say like I did really get a good laugh out of a lot of stuff now. I found it very pleasant. Like it was just a genuinely enjoyable watch. But it's an enjoyable watch with some meat to it as well, which I think now is the perfect segue for us to talk about themes and ideas. Because I think that if I may start off, I think when you write a show like this, which is, here's a guy from the city and he goes to the country, I think there's potentially an inherent message in that, which can be problematic, which is, if you just give up on the city and go to the country, all your problems will solve themselves. Which, here's the thing, right? That I do feel, if you play it very broadly, can be a flaw in these kind of stories.
Yeah.
Because not all of everyone's life problems are a function of location. I mean, let me put it this way. If you live with someone and you and them, so let's say you've got a partner, right? And you and them are not getting along very well. Do you think really, truly, that moving away from where you are right now will solve that? Now, obviously, I've been very broad there, and it could very well be that it's a location that's causing you not to get along very well. You might have neighbours that you like and, they don't. It could be that. But you've got to be careful when you apply this kind of message very broadly that it's not always going to be the case that simply switching location solves everything.
I think I could see someone kind of taking that from this show, though. Not for all problems, but for... if you feel like your life is too stressful, hectic, if you feel crowded and you feel like sort of drained of joy, the trick is leave behind the sort of crowded urban life and move to a small rural place where you know everyone and can have these serendipitous moments of fun and joy, and you can kind of cobble together a little family, and it'll be great. I totally see how someone could take that from the show, or at least think it's sort of indirectly saying that. Yeah.
I'm willing, however, to accept in the case of Barakamon, because I think that because of the reasoning why, what essentially the purpose of why he's out there, why Handa has gone there, it's not simply just to escape a nebulous concept of a busy city life. He's there specifically to hone his calligraphy, and also admittedly as part of a penance thing to put him out of the way of the director and such, which is fair. But a lot of the more inspirational moments he has in the show are a result of his interactions with the people in the village. So I don't think the lesson in Barakamon is a very broad, doesn't matter what problem you've got, you can go to this country and, get away from it all. But I do think that the lesson, or rather one of the ideas of Barakamon is that, to put it very simply, to relax a little bit. because it'll reap benefits for you both in terms of your well-being, but also in terms of your creative output. Like, this is why I said very early on in the show, in this podcast rather, that think about it. Does it not make any sense to you that the director's lambasting his work even though it's won first place? Does that not seem a bit odd? Like, why would he say that even though he's presumably on the same judging panel that's given that prize out? You know?
Right.
And I think that maybe Barakamon is perhaps putting the message out there that in this kind of creative field, like, to spoil the end of the show, by the way, there is another similar competition, which Handa enters, and he doesn't even get, like, top 3. I think he gets, like, fifth in that one, if I recall. Yeah.
He finishes ahead of Kanzaki, though.
Yeah. But he's entirely okay with that. And the thing is, like, I think the reason that is because the work he's created for that is a product of his experiences, his very, like, positive experiences that in the village with the people, these characters.
Yeah. And he's learning.
And
sorry, I was just going to say, and he's also, like, learning a new style. Like, and I think as he kind of grows in confidence and ability and maturity with his own unique style, like, I think he probably expects to progress more. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the lesson is not just leave the city and go to the country and it'll solve everything, but rather, I think the thing that Barakamon is trying to say, which I think is why I brought Rakugo Shinjo as well, is that this very rigid, like, criteria for what constitutes good art and in turn good calligraphy, like, it is better to create art from a passionate and positive experience that might categorize, like, in terms of, like, these, like, arbitrary standards, like, not rate so highly, you know, than aim for, like, you know, first place, but create something that's functionally hollow. That, I think, is the lesson it's trying to get across. That's why the characters are as specific as they are, like, you know, these crazy, like, you know, unique individuals. Because I don't necessarily know a Naru, for example, but I know a lot of unique people in my life. And were I an artist, like, you know, trying to find inspiration, like, you know, drawing from those particular experiences, I think would be very beneficial. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's the lesson it's trying to get across, and that's why I brought Kawafuji, because Kawafuji, like, seems to become more himself. Like, we see a little bit of the veil peeled back a bit. Right. He's no longer obviously wearing the, like, you know, shirt and tie outfit. We get to see his tattoos. That's the reason he has those, because apart from the Yakuza joke, we get to see something that he obviously does not present to the world. And he gets to do that in this particular environment. So that, I think, is the lesson. I think this is also accentuated by some excellent direction, because when Handa goes back to Tokyo, the introduction we get to him going back there is a lot of, like, very busy noise. Like, there's like subways, like cars and all that. It's very noise driven. Like, you go from quiet country place to, like, traffic, etc., you know. So I think that is one of the lessons of the show, which is that it's not for everyone, but in this very specific instance, it's basically saying, to hell with, like, you know, these standards that are being imposed on your creative output. What's actually important is that it comes from experiences that you value. So yeah, like, that, I think, is the main lesson of the show, which is that, like, trying to reach an arbitrary standard, get yourself a goal, like, you know, place, prize in whatever you're trying to compete in, is less important than creating work that's deeply personal to you. That's why, like, all of the moments that we see of Handa, like, creating, like, the big, like, the sun one or the stars one, for example, or even the moment where he's, like, literally sitting on, you know, this bowl of ink to try and, like, make prints with it. You know, they might not, by a calligrapher's standards, be good in whatever standards they use for that, but they're personal and meaningful to him, and that's what's important. So that, to me, is the big takeaway from the show, and that's why I think it'll stick with me afterwards, because it's true. Better, in my opinion, to make a work that you personally care about is informed by stuff that you fondly remember than just, I don't know, crapping out something that you don't give a shit about just to try and, like, you know, get a prize, like to make Oscar bait, for example.
No, I think I agree with most of what you're saying there, but I think I want to approach some of the points a little differently, because while you were talking, I had some thoughts. I think that Barakamon is not saying very specifically, like, what you need to do is leave the city and your problems will go away. I think the key deal is that I think while Handa does end up going back to the island, I think that he will not be there forever. I think he will have some time there, and he may come back to Tokyo. He may not.
May I just interrupt and say something that just popped into my head then? Can you imagine a different, like, a follow-up to this show? Like, this is, I'm not even saying this is necessarily would be good, but it just popped to me and I have to get it out there. What if, like, we had a follow-up where it was, like, in the future and, like, Naru was grown up and she then left the island while he stayed? Like, it was, like, the closing, like, weeks before that happened.
Yeah.
And we got to reflect all the time. Like, there's potentially, like... Because, yes, Handa does indeed stay on the island, and I saw that coming, to be honest.
Well, he goes back, right? I mean, he'll have to go back to Tokyo sometimes to continue his career. I don't think he can fully maintain island residency and be a calligrapher, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think that's the... So he will live there part of the time. But I agree that that's an enticing example that you've posed for a future thing. And also, I think that will be the case with Hiro. Like, Hiroshi is gonna leave the island and go elsewhere, because I think the point is not go to the country and your problems will be solved. But I think rather the point I took from it was that when you are young and do not have a lot of life experience, going on a pilgrimage of sorts is something that can be of incredible value to you. And it turned out to be not just important to him as a person, because, you know, he's rediscovering himself and figuring out a new style that's uniquely his as an artist. But it turned out to be, like, super important to him as a human being, as a person.
Yes, that's true as well. You're quite right.
And yeah, I mean, I just think, like, regardless of whether he ends up staying on the island later, I think the big key is, like, he was in Tokyo. That was his life. That's all he knew. But then he went to this island for this period of time and it changed his life, just like it did his dad's. And that's how his dad knew something like that would be good for him, because he did the same thing. He went on his own kind of pilgrimage. And, you know, a lot of people, like, travel, go abroad, live for a year in different places or two or more. And, like, it can really be valuable and enriching. And it's sort of the thing that, like, helped him kind of improve as a human, because, like, it's actually sort of foreshadowed a lot in episode 2, kind of what personally the island journey is going to do for Handa when, you know, they're on, he and Naru are moving back home. They're, like, traveling back to his house, I should say. And she's like, hey, sensei, like, come up here and look at the sunset. And he looks up and he's like, what sunset? There's only clouds. Can't see anything. She's like, no, you just have to climb up here. And you can see. Ah,
yes.
He just had
over the tidal defense, yeah.
He just had to get a different perspective on what, you know, on the world, to see the beauty in it. And getting that different perspective was very uncomfortable for him. It required effort and work on his part, the climbing.
Well, just to add into that, like, what I don't think this is necessarily intended by the show, but I think it's still a valid reading, is that what they're climbing is a tidal defense for the island. So obviously by going over there, like, he's getting out of somewhere that's safe and somewhere that's a bit more risky. So that plays into it as well.
Yeah, and he's able to, like, have this vantage point to see, like, this, like, beauty and, you know, just see the world a different way. And it's kind of like a microcosm or a kind of encapsulation of what his journey does for him, what his time on the island as his kind of his time abroad, his pilgrimage or whatever does for him as a person. And, you know, I think this can happen for people. I mean, certainly travel and living in a different kind of culture is a way to do it. But in Handa's case, it wasn't international travel. And I think a lot of people, in my country, will have this sort of awakening or change of perspective when they go off to college, to university. And, they're out of the home, they're out of the bubble and shelter that they have been in. And, they may have achieved a lot before, but now they are exposed to all these different ideas, different viewpoints, different lifestyles and opinions. Many they might not agree with, many they might, and some that will like change their minds and change their lives. So, yeah, I think the show, like one of the things I took from it was how important that is to, as a young person, part of growing up is getting out of those very comfortable kind of that lifestyle that you've maintained. And, he did it even after he was a working professional. It's like he skipped over that part of his life. That's something that his father actually says when he's staying with them. Like, we're to blame for keeping him so sheltered. And indeed, there are hints of that through like the through the episodes. Like we get some flashbacks back to when he was younger. So yeah, I agree wholeheartedly as well. It's also about like just getting out there to meet people. Like one thing I will mention as well as a final thought on something that I felt was kind of genius. Throughout the show's run, people keep letting themselves into Handa's house. And the reason that is not like, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want like people on my street coming into his house. But the thing is like, this is a very small community and they all know each other very well. Like it's one of those very tightly knit village places. So it's understandable they feel comfortable like walking in and out of other people's houses. But one thing to note is that like Handa's like has 5 keys in total for his home, but some of them are missing and some of them are in possession of other people. And I want to note that by the end of the show, he has actually got all of them back. So it's now entirely up to him who he lets in and out of his house. But he's still willing to do that and let people come in. So it's a signifier like of how his attitude has changed towards like the islanders over time. That he's become much more familiar and comfortable with them to the point where he's just like, hey, I didn't want you coming in here like in the first episode, for example, or even in the second with Mina, for example. But now I have full control over comes in and out. But that doesn't, I want you to feel free to come in and join as you please. Yeah, thanks, Miwa, for copying the key all those times.
And the one he just found, the one he found randomly out in the field.
Yeah, that was the one she lost. She was like, I made 4 copies, and I've got these ones, but I don't know where the other one is. I must have dropped it somewhere. And then, yes, he fortuitously finds it when he gets lost in his backyard. I really loved, you mentioned, like, him letting people in. There's that like scene in the first episode when everyone in the evening comes to help him move in, and that scene fucking rules, man. Like all throughout the show, there are these like fantastic moments of these other people, whether he likes it or not, like looking out for him and treating him as one of their own, as extended family, and whether or not he's let them in, and he gradually softens and does that. But man, it felt so much like, again, I've used this word a lot in the show, but like unforced. Because they're not doing it all the time, just sometimes, just in moments that he really needs someone. And because of that, like, if it feels to me better than something like, I've talked about this show a few times on the podcast, Big Wind Up, the baseball show. The main character in that, his problems are not the same problems as Handa's, but where they are similar is that they are, by default, 2 very isolated characters for very different reasons, but they're very isolated. And the shows, both shows are kind of about them being accepted despite all their flaws by these other characters. And the big wind-up, Ukiku Furika Bute is the Japanese title. Thank you, Self, for remembering that. Big wind-up, like, just did not feel as organic. Like it just felt like everyone was all the time tripping over themselves to help this person who didn't really reciprocate all that much or show very much interest. I don't know. I feel like bring this up in a negative, but I think the show is quite good despite a nagging kind of issue I have with it. But to get back to Barakamon, it really did not feel like it didn't feel super constructed or contrived that these people would show up every so often to give him food or help him move or pull him into this big cultural event, or make him part of their weird, like idiosyncratic, I guess a better word for it, kind of death remembrance ceremonies. Because apparently no other, they did not do anything like what the Goto Islanders did in Tokyo. It was totally different with like fireworks and nighttime and all this other stuff. But yeah, I mean, I really liked this aspect of the show. The it just felt like it really felt like a true community, and not again like something that was just constructed only for the purpose of making the viewer feel good, which it does, but it still felt more natural than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I don't really have anything else to add about the show other than that. Yeah, it was a fun, pleasant watch, which was kind of what I needed right now. It's not a lot of it does not unfortunately stuck with me, but that is not the fault of the show. I should really, really stress that. So for me, like I would. Like, if you want my recommendation on it, in fact, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up, Doc, comes to think of it?
I do. I just wanted to say just a few things about, so I talked earlier about, the pilgrimage and how, like, what Barakamon sort of thinks is beneficial to Handa, the human being. But, there's also this other aspect of it, which you touched on a lot, was what the show thinks he needs as an artist. And it really struck me watching this show, Shadon, how in anime, I can't really think of a ton of shows that are, maybe there are more than I'm giving it credit for. There always are, but like, this is such a story of like personal failure. And this character that like, I mean, he is disgraced. He is at his lowest point in life. He has failed. Despite being, his career being this great success up to this point. And just like that it's this show about like a person coming to terms with his failure. And it takes a long time. It's not an instant thing. Like, him humbling himself and gaining all this life experience and this new perspective and maturation, like, takes time. And it's like painful sometimes, but it was so refreshing to see a show that, was about an adult who had experienced this huge failing. Because I think, similar to what I said about what's his name in Decadence, like when you have an adult character,
Kaburagi.
Like, what's up?
Kaburagi.
Thank you. With Kaburagi. But when you have like an adult character, you just have all these different trajectories and avenues you can explore. That you can have them have failed and them already having these deep flaws, and the show doesn't have to be about like the great potential of youth or anything like that. Those shows are great. I love those kinds of shows. You have to love those sort of things as an anime fan. But no, this was cool. Yeah. And like, you got to see him be like super vulnerable. I mean, to the point of like we were saying, throwing coffee on the director who he just apologized to. And it was this complete gut reaction. It was a physical response, like a psychosomatic thing from the emotion that it was totally fight or flight, like completely, oh my God, this is the most terrifying thing ever. My very being is on the line because like someone is about to judge my art. I can't let him know. Yeah. And then he ends up just saying, this is not really my art. This is not what this is a test. So, like, so cool to see that.
Yeah, I mean, like, it feels kind of appropriate that he started both failing artistically and failing as a person, like failing as a human being, like, by lashing out into the way he did, but that he ends up, like, being better at both in the ways that are truly important. Like, okay, he does worse the second time around if you want to go by, like, oh, he got first, and then he got second, and he got fifth. So arguably he's gotten worse over time. But the show is very clear on the fact that, that doesn't matter.
Exactly.
What matters is, like, whether or not he's content with the work he's created, and that the value of it is, like, what we've seen, which is how the experiences he's had on the island with all these wonderful people have made him a better person, and he's able to translate that into the characters. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think you totally pointed this out earlier, that like the show is very much saying that like a calligrapher as an artist ought to be concerned with different things ultimately than how they do in these exhibitions, and that the sort of governing body or association like judges them as like those things, are probably important for your career, but they probably also shouldn't be your sole kind of driving thing as an artist to place high, because then I don't know, because then you're missing out, you're losing something, you're not focusing on the right thing, or maybe you're just missing something about what being an artist could do for you as a human being. And just how those are different. I mean, you could argue he got worse, but like, again, it's like, they have these great like lessons in the episodes. Like we talked about the one about talent being born from hard work, but they talk too about like, what is acknowledgement and why does it matter to an artist? Like, because I think Kanzaki reveals himself to be concerned chiefly with acknowledgement. Like if he doesn't have acknowledgement, he doesn't have validation. If he doesn't have validation, he doesn't have a purpose as an artist and as a human. But like if the show is like unequivocally against that as like a way to live, like chasing this acknowledgement, like there has to be something in the art that the artist pursues, like just for the sake of that. And whether or not they attain the acknowledgement will be secondary. And you could argue that's a very idealistic kind of viewpoint, but it's one that I like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have anything else to add, Doc?
Oh, I think that's mostly it. That was a lot. There's a lot there.
There's more to it than meets the eye of this one. There is definitely messages and ideas to it. And I think it's a good lesson for everyone that it's better not to chase the gold medal at the expense of like being true to yourself and being like, create like, even if you're not like necessarily a creative, but at least like, just being enriched by the experiences you can have with other people, like, So yeah, to pick up where I left off earlier before I remembered that maybe I should let Don talk a little bit, which is it basically like I will remember some stuff from this show, but like the specific comedy beats, like a lot of it will probably have left me by now. In fact, I know for a fact it has. But again, that is not an indictment against the show. That's just me. And I think that, much like how you suggested that, maybe say like only needs to spend so long on the island before returning, I suppose that could be true also of Barakamon. Like if there was more like content with these characters, it would probably wear thin after a while, I would say. I think it's just about the right length. It's very funny. It is also very well animated in a lot of places. Like they throw everything but the kitchen sink in terms of style at this, I think. They like, for example, when they have the fishing tournament, and they introduce these two locals, and they've got like these amazing like wrestling cards, like introductions for them, things like that. Or of course we mentioned Naru's like sudden man face.
Yes.
Or even the stick thing. Like, you know, they like it feels like they're willing to try and make, you know, do different things with it, which is great. So all in all, I really enjoyed my time with Barakamon. It's not the best thing I've seen by a long shot. It's not even in my top 10. Like, I'd call it pretty good, maybe even great. The only things that I had problems with really were that some of the jokes like were a bit too puerile for my taste. I don't want to see Naru gripping a sea slug and then having white stuff come out of it. Like that.
That was over the line.
That was what we in the industry call a swing and a miss.
Definitely.
So it's not flawless by all means. But yeah, it's a pleasant time. It's a nice comfort blanket, and I reckon pretty much anyone can enjoy it if they just like. If you're feeling down, go watch it. And it will make you feel better. Which, I mean, it's a healing anime. Does it make you feel better at the end of it? Yes. So it's a success in my opinion.
Kinema Citrus is, you know, apex as a studio before.
Yeah, and then they made the anti-healing anime that just made me feel shit afterwards. So thanks a bunch for that, Kinema Citrus.
The anime virus.
I mean, they could. The thing is that okay, look, it's not their fault. They didn't write that shit.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So I'll be fair. I'll be fair to them and just say, look, it's okay if you had like guns to your heads. I understand. I know, like, you've got to make bank and all that.
It's like Barrett Wallace says on the elevator. They're complicit.
No Sid philosopher, like I said. Oh, shit. What about you, Doc? How would you sum up the show, then?
Well, I mean, I also really, really liked it. You know, I really enjoyed my time with it. And as you said, I think it is the appropriate length because I think it has plenty to say and lots of fun jokes and character moments. And it truly doesn't feel like it wears out its welcome. I think, you know, I guess because the manga went on forever, they had plenty of material to adapt kind of 6 years into its run. So it is something I've enjoyed my time with. I felt the healing vibes. One thing I will note is that I don't think that you have to be into calligraphy or very into Japanese culture to appreciate it. I mean, certainly if you are, you'll probably like it. You know, you'll get those extra bits out of it. But I think, like, I mean, I know nothing about calligraphy, first of all, and so I think you don't really need an appreciation for, you know, super duper Japanese art or anything like that, or the rural Japanese life to like appreciate this show. I mean, I think you could kind of substitute calligraphy for any form of creative expression.
Rakugo, maybe.
Yeah, right. And Handa.
Yeah. Just to pipe in there about the thing about calligraphy, by the way, like everything that I've inferred about like the way like calligraphy works in this show, like it has been entirely through the show itself, and the show has been like pretty much entirely terminology free. Like if you're expecting like them to start talking about the names of styles and whatnot, it doesn't do that. So you can walk into this pretty much blind, just as long as you have at least some understanding that this is like Rakugo, like Takazura Fear. You know, there is a long-standing Japanese cultural art, and that you can make some extrapolation of that about how rigid it can be in terms of what it demands from the people who are doing it. But that's all you need, and that to me seems like something that any attentive audience can intuit from it.
Totally. I mean, there are layers, right? Like if you're super duper into calligraphy or are a calligrapher yourself, boy, you probably already watched this show.
You have been seen.
If you're just like, you know, an artist in a different medium, like there's a lot you could take out of that. If you're like in your early 20s and a frustrated young professional, there's an in there. So there's like a lot of ways you could enjoy the show, and again, don't need to.
Or even if you're a frustrated professional in your 30s, like I am.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. If you enjoy the Chaos Gremlins, this is one of the all timers in Naru.
I defy anyone like to say they don't like Naru.
I mean,
she's not like. She's a perfectly constructed character in my opinion, because she doesn't overdo any one part of her. Like she's not so like constantly screaming in your face, like kind of thing, nor Handa's face for that matter. Like, she's perfectly blended, and she's great. She's really, really enjoyable.
I'll go one further.
Definitely the highlight of the show.
I'll go one further. If you don't like Naru, stop listening to this podcast and unsubscribe. See yourself out of our community.
Yeah.
Who are you that doesn't like Naru? My God.
There's the door. Off you go.
Of all the humans you could dislike, Naru. Why? She's delightful. But I totally recommend it. I mean, I think even if this is not your bag, I think so I wouldn't consider myself someone who is like always seeking out slice of life anime to enjoy. I bet like if you're into slower paced, more slice of life things, then this show has already been on your radar. But if you're not, I still think you'll like this because that's not really a thing that I seek out frequently, though when I have, I've enjoyed. And I really dug this a lot. I mean, I think it is, it's got enough plot. It's never just sort of sitting around doing nothing. It's not that sort of chill show. Like, there's always stuff going on. They're always going somewhere. They're always in the middle of some goal or task, or there's always something to do. Always character interactions that are meaningful, and it's always making you laugh. So yeah, like I totally 2 thumbs up. I think it's really good. As far as these kind of shows, I would put it at or near the top of the ones that I have seen. I enjoyed it a hell of a lot. Okay, well, I guess that's going to do it then for the Barakamon request line. Shadon, thank you so much for hanging out and discussing this wonderful little anime with me for a couple hours.
My pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
And to all the lovely patrons, thank you ever so much for being part of our community, for supporting us. Again, head over to patreon.com/Warui to support us if you'd like to. If you don't want to, that's also okay. You can still find our stuff on any podcast platform and on YouTube and Twitch. And special shouts to Mirror on the Wall for requesting this. This was really good.
You didn't make me watch a Soda Can anime. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, good old Tallulah Bell coming through the clutch.
Are you glad you dodged that?
I am so glad I dodged that.
Soda glad. I'm dead. I'm done. I'm gonna go get drunk after this. Methinks.
Yeah, I guess with that we bid a fond farewell to Barakamon Obama. So,
oh God,
Mr. President, thank you for your time with us. Oh God, listen, everybody, thanks again. Embrace each other, everyone, to the ends of the universe. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Bring back the brothers.
They still think of that